shit. I know I laced it with blood.
How are you? Are you doing well? I hope you're doing well, whether you're on your way to work, whether you're on your way home from work, whether you're on your way back to your spouse, whether you're on your way to military deployment. I hope wherever you are, you're doing well. And I hope you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I hope that is how everybody who ever hears this in the history of recorded time and space feels, except for the motherfucking family who had a motherfucking Sweet 16 this past weekend in South Philadelphia in a Mummers Day parade drinking beer push hall. Those people need to never feel any level of self-actualization, security, or general happiness or opportunity in their life throughout perpetuity for the remainder of their shitty existence. Now, the reason I start this message, this broadcast, Joe Rogan, the reason I start this transmission, the reason I start this broadcast with that simple message is because, as you may have guessed, that is a thinly veiled anecdote for what genuinely was an experience that I had happen to me recently. Now, just this past weekend, I do some photography work on the side for this entertainment company. Now, the entertainment company, they get gigs that range from, large businesses having their Christmas but now holiday party because they can't have Christmas parties anymore. Nice halls, big businesses, things like that. But sometimes they'll just be simple family affairs, events that just need it to have a photographer document a moment in their child's life that is genuinely not that significant, i.e. a Sweet 16. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a mummers is, now believe me, all this is building a greater picture for the story that's happening. So in Philadelphia, we have this long-standing tradition of journeymen, unionmen, apprentices, generally, the builders and the makers of things and physical stuff in this world. Every time it gets really cold in Philadelphia, what they like to do is dress up like fucking morons. Think of it as like, I almost said Mummers Day parade in the explanation. Think of these people as like people performing in a New Orleans Mardi Gras Day parade on ice, on crack cocaine. These are the people that have like the fighting leprechaun tattoos on their calves and just drink themselves into oblivion every January and dress up like Elton John was a court jester in the Dark Ages. Now these people, they claim to actually do stuff during the other 11 months of the year. Now whatever this stuff is still yet to be determined. But it looks like they have a series of pretty much cinder block, concrete, nondescript meeting halls throughout the city. The kind of buildings that generally look like porn stores when you're on in-between town highways headed from Alabama to fucking Mississippi. Those cinder block buildings that you look like just make murder inside and sell it. Those types of places. So there was a trash-ass two-street family that decided it was time to celebrate Principessa becoming a woman. Turns out this family also owns one of the porn building cinder block location meetups that the Mummers Day parade people meet to drink and apparently just drink. So I walk into this building just sweating head to toe, because if you're anywhere in this country this past weekend, it was fucking hot. Portland's melting. Portland is gone. It is on fire right now because the sun's too close to it. So wherever you were hot and sweating your left and right balls off this weekend. So I'm lugging all this camera equipment into this beer hall push, and I'm just dripping in sweat, completely dripped through in a terrible way. All this black pants, black dress, the whole thing. I'm looking like an idiot strolling in it. Now, I finally get the last bag inside the beer hall push place, and I walk into Principessa. What the fuck are you doing? How did you think that would be okay? Why don't you go get me a hoagie? And I walk in, I'm like, oh, Christ, these are the people we're dealing with right out of the gate. So then I hear Principessa respond, fuck off, Mom. And turns out, not only was Principessa the maiden of honor, I don't know what the bitch turning 16 at a Sweet 16 party, whoever that person is, the head quinceañera-s, I don't know. So it was Principessa, who also works there. So this person was celebrating her daughter's sweet 16 at a business they already own and had Cinderella herself set up her own party. Which, and I swear to God, I kid you not, the entire party was themed for fat people who at a baseball game. There was several different stations of Twinkies and plain potato chips. There was gas station hot dog rollers. And to top it all off, there was an assortment of your favorite fucking Laffy Taffies. So it really looked like a Willy Wonka factory of just simply white trash, like the type of place Vince Papali would bring his kids to on Easter. That type of place. And that was a very visually apt sentence. I hope you followed that part. And it was just fucking gross, man. And I'm someone who loves Italian culture, Italian slang, jokes, the accent, everything that comes with the window dressing of being Italian. I always said, like, if there was any ethnicity that I could just pick to be born into, it would 100% easily, not even a question, would I choose to be Italian. Because they're just the coolest fucking people. They're always down by the docks and nothing's that big a deal. And they're always saying something kind of smart, but like saying it like a stupid guy when they're talking to the boss because, was super self-aware. That type of shit. That is my favorite accent in the world. There's no other group of people besides maybe like a Latin accent that can be funnier. But if you do a good Latin accent, you're not Latin. That'll just get you fucking killed, esse. But I love Italians. But it turns out, like every other group of people, every other ethnicity, every other, the fucking this, that, or whatever group you belong to because of your physical appearance, you have a shitty subsection of that group. And I used to think Italians were untouchable, mostly because if you tried to touch them, the cousin would have you killed. But it turns out there's white trash Italians specifically. They're their own subset where their kind of niche thing is that they have their children work in their shitty businesses that probably double as fronts for illegitimate businesses. So I spent my weekend listening to an Italian family yell at each other in the name of Principessa becoming a woman, which means she's about 2 years away from being a single mom anyway. And honestly, there was like a surprising not a lot of dudes at this party. And not that I was like checking out the kids at a 16-year-old birthday party because, fool me once, not going to make that same mistake. But it was mostly like all future, loud, physically looking lesbians who are actually married to husbands who cheat on them. That pretty much is what takes up South Philly. So if you're not from Philadelphia and you've always heard tale of how South Philly was romanticized as this place where people walk on to NFL teams and, their workouts are fueled by cheesesteaks and, wife beaters, it's not a real place. There's like one block of it and there's like two dudes who still do that shit. Other than that, what you have are the children, most specifically now the mothers of those alcoholics from the romantic period of South Philadelphia have grown into Newport smoking, youth soccer league coaches. Like they're just the type that always has their hair in a ponytail. They're real handsome. They want to let you know they do business right by employing their children and cursing at them on their birthday. Not the type of people that you want to document or take pictures of for a very long time. But hopefully it does not end well for her, and hopefully the rest of her life is awful. Also, something else I've realized is that I can hear my own accent now. Not that I haven't in the past, but it's been like brought to my attention having, gone places now and have people. I have friends who are not from here, that there are certain key words, and apart from everyone just saying like water, instead they'll say wooder, or like the obvious ones. There's subtle words, and there's ways that you speak that come off revealing your accent. Like take like hoagie is a general word, right? But if you wanted to like start doing a Philadelphia accent and make fun of people, you can say, "Yo, bro, we gotta go get a hoagie. We gotta go get a hoagie because we gotta get to the game and parking's gonna be bad. So let's stop and get a hoagie first." And it's like I heard someone say the word hoagie back to me as like a joke. And hearing it for the first time, it like clicked and unlocked a part of my brain where it was like, oh my God, how many words am I incorrectly pronouncing? Because hearing hoagie, I'm like, it's this weird combination, the Philadelphia accent that is, of like this surfer who only speaks from the middle parts of words. Because it's kind of like, it's like saying Redondo, like I'm headed down to Redondo and catch a swell, mixed with like this Midwesterner combination smushing of the front and back of words. So if you take hoagie, the surfer would be like, go get a hoagie and head down to Redondo. But in Philly, they smush it together and say, let's go get a hoagie. And then we'll go like, fuck off, dickhead, and go dick some more beers, dickhead, while you eat a hoagie. it's like a smushing of a weird thing. And honestly, I'm not good at accents, nor am I good at voices, so it's probably time to get off that. But honestly, all that just stems from someone recently pointing out I have an accent, and I took pride in not trying to have an accent because I think accents are stupid. And I think an accent is generally just a group of people saying words wrong, which is not that impressive. But it doesn't make me love Italians any less. It just makes me hate people who yell and employ their children at businesses. Which leads me to the next bit of news. Speaking of groups of people that employ their children at shitty businesses, coronavirus back in the news. I know y'all missed it, but now it's back and better than ever with a new name. Now coronavirus is called the Delta virus, which originally, I think we were told that the reason we had to call it that instead of the Indian virus was because... Yep, that was pretty much my explanation. Everything that I saw or read was basically like, well, we have to be careful of calling it the Indian virus because then there's going to be an increase in Indian hate crimes here in America, and we don't want that. Which is true, but I don't think we really run the risk of that because I have yet to meet any person in the world who doesn't like Indian people. And when I say Indian, I mean people literally from India, not how the majority of Americans have meant Indians for the majority of American history. Because Indians are the fucking best. I mean, you talk about accents. Now, that's an accent you want to hear bad news in. But I digress once more. The Delta virus is back. And apparently my understanding as to how this came to be, apart from, the Black Berets taking control and rebranding it the Delta, John McCain's private army virus, what happened was, essentially, we didn't meet vaccine thresholds. And the way viruses work is that, I don't know if you've ever heard the anecdote, but one that stuck with me and helped me understand it was if everyone in the world all at one time started using Purell, I mean, literally every single person that exists, all on three, started washing their hands with Purell, which is 99.9% effective at stopping the spread of germs, correct? Right? We all know that. We all have read the bottle. We all can read, hopefully. If we were to do that 0.1% of 1%, that lacking 100, the 99.9 and the 0.1 that would make it 100, that 0.1% all of a sudden has a moment to mutate and become a new thing. Because a virus is just a thing that just continues to mutate in perpetuity until it's completely eradicated and every type of cell that can make a virus is gone. Any remaining component is always on like a timeline going to be moving forward, trying to figure out how to meet, AC, GT or whatever the fuck those things are from biology. They're all trying to find the perfect little spot to link back up, say what's up with one another, and then create a new virus, which could maybe then kill us all, which looks like to be the way we're headed. So that's apparently what happened. Not enough people got the vaccine. Coronavirus had a moment to call their boy, meet up with the other part of coronavirus, get together and say, hey, it's now a new virus party. And now this new virus party, just like the last new virus party, is starting to spread. And now, just like any other good party, people are showing up who were not invited and ruining the party. What started in India, which was a party not a lot of people would ever want to go to begin with because they shit on the floor at that party, has since spread to Australia, which is a party some people want to go to. It's like America, only the seasons are upside down and the spiders are bigger. Australia, who's been pretty solid, even though they have pretty much an advantage when it comes to lockdowns because they're a fucking island, is all of a sudden locking down again. It's now struck Europe, and fucking London's delaying their, they were going to get rid of the mask mandate, get back open, do more things, blah, blah, blah. People have more freedom, or as free as you're allowed to be under the watchful gaze of the monarchy. All of that's been delayed because there's now a new strain, a new, Yeezy Season 5 edition of coronavirus back that's ready to fuck everyone's life up because it's summertime again. Now, fuck, man. It feels like we were so close to this shit being over. And it's just the stuff like that that makes crazy people have a reason to think none of this, or at least some of this, is not real. And that's obviously not the case because people are dying. But the issue is that we keep hearing about these numbers of people dying and no one's seen them yet. But do you remember when you felt that way fucking 14 months ago? When you thought we were starting to lock down, it was never before seen. And then 2 months into everyone hoarding toilet paper and waiting outside Panera Bread for their soup, all of a sudden you started to hear stories about your friends getting coronavirus, or your coworker's dad passed away, or things that all of a sudden made it real. And then sure, it didn't end up hitting the point where we all thought it was going to be, which was going to be 6% of our population drops dead. But it still became at some point, and I think a lot of people, if you're being honest with yourself, would acknowledge there was a point where a lot of it went from, yeah, okay, with your arms crossed to shit, really. And if we're not careful, and actually it doesn't fucking matter what we do at this point because this is what history does, it repeats itself. We're going to see this happen again, but this time we're going to feel it a little bit more because it's like a tsunami. Every time it gets closer, the wave gets a little bit bigger, and this time it has a far scarier name. I don't even really know what Delta is besides a letter in the Greek alphabet, but whenever you hear it in modern context, it's generally some awful, awful, nefarious, covert shit. Delta anything to do with the government or public health or fucking anything at all, you never want the word Delta attached. It's generally speaking a pretty bad thing when it comes to fucking anything, other than, of course, the Greek alphabet, which if you look at without even knowing or understanding any of it, on paper is a scary looking alphabet. It looks like the cave scribblings of a prisoner during the Paleolithic era. And speaking of the Paleolithic era, there has been apparently a discovery of a new skull that links. Linking is the wrong term, but they found a new skull that's like a different species of human. Whether or not it links with the current, Homo sapien that we are now, that is yet to be foreseen because I am not an archaeologist, and that I think there's like 6 archaeologists in the world. But the point is, there's been a discovery that at one point we were a different type of thing. And again, it's just blown over. No one even fucking cares. You care if you maybe came across Nat Geo's website in the last 48 hours. That's a big deal. Because I don't know if people don't think about this, or if people don't care, or if you're just generally content with your life. But to think that at one point let's just say at one point we were monkey people covered in fur in a cave fighting off saber-toothed tigers, to turn into people sending piffy emails at 2:30 on a Tuesday from a cubicle. Like, that's a crazy jump. So you got to think, like, well, it's not like Tuesday we just woke up and decided we were no longer these hairy monkey people, and then Wednesday we go into the office. There had to have been people in between, and there's a bunch of different people in between. There was Neanderthals, there was the Cro-Magnon, and I know, the rule of 3, but I don't have a third example handy. The point is, actually, there was like little people in the island of Papua New Guinea, I think. There was some, human type thing thousands of years ago that were like little munchkin people that didn't come over 3.5 feet tall. Those people went on to run TLC. What I'm saying is we got to keep track and record of the elements and the stages of which we were people. And archaeologists are doing the good work. They go digging in the dirt until they can make some shit up about some bones. That's just a joke. There's more people than we thought there were people, which is interesting because all of this falls under science, right? None of this is a liberal art when we're doing archaeological digs and shit like that. And it's weird factoring in how much, like, all of a sudden people seem to care about, well, actually people don't give a shit about, but more in the news there's been about aliens. Just this past weekend, the government finally released that UFO report that they attached to the last COVID bill, that they were going to give you a stimulus check, but this time the people demanded you lie to us a little bit more clearly about aliens. Finally, that thing came out. And just to sum it up, if you don't plan on reading the 9-page summary or the hundreds of pages later that will make no sense and be partially blacked out anyway, the basic conclusion, or the thing you could take from the report about the aliens, is that they cannot rule out maybe they're aliens. Right? That's pretty anticlimactic. That really doesn't cover that much. So that was the conclusion of this long-awaited thing. After a year of news buildup and stories about UFOs and aliens and blah, 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 the thing finally comes out and they say, yeah, we can't really rule it out, so shit doesn't change. But all along the line, there's been these weirder stories that, like, we've discovered a species of human beings, or there was a pig-elephant hybrid born just this past week, and the farmers are kind of confused. Why was there a little baby elephant pig with one eye born? That happened. That's a real fucking thing that you could look up. It's a real thing. And no one says why or how. It just said it showed up one day like fucking Clark Kent. These things are probably related. Do I understand how? Absolutely not. Am I even going to present a theory? Probably, yeah. My theory is that whatever we became now, whatever this Homo sapien is now, and whatever we have record of existing in the past, be that Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, the cavemen, the hairy monkey people fucks, all of those things were elements of humans, or whatever is supposed to be a human. They weren't the current locked in that piece of time human, if that makes sense. So like take Neanderthal, the last group of people, I think. They were not humans in the sense that this is the stage of human. This is human. This is what human will always be throughout time. We are the Neanderthal, aka human. Because now we're Homo sapiens, aka human. What we're finding out through, people digging in the dirt is there is an even different stage of us being humans. And all of this seems to be like somehow esoterically related to the concept that there are humans and then there's certain iterations throughout history of humans. Now, why is all of this news happening as there's this alien push in the news? I don't fucking know. I have absolutely no idea. But at least what it's, for me personally, is making me do is consider exactly what the fuck we think we are. Truly. Because what are we? We're the thing that gets to experience and think. Animals don't get to think. They experience. They experience all the livelong fucking day. Anytime their eyes are open, they're experiencing. And that's what people do to a degree. But we also think. We think, why are we thinking this? Why are we experiencing this shit? Why are there UFOs? What might be driving that UFO? Do you see what I'm getting at? Because hopefully, because I certainly don't. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's a weird level of conscious thinking that's occurring now, I think, more than ever. And there's also an unprecedented level of non-conscious thinking and actions taking place right now. I think there's this heightened sense of this is complete and utter bullshit, paired with everyone having this unusually heightened sense of, wait a minute, this is complete and utter bullshit you're trying to convince me of. Because all of a sudden the news seems extraordinarily quiet and uneventful, but also periodically absurd as fuck out of nowhere. So John McAfee, the guy who everyone essentially remembers as like the antivirus Charlie Sheen, the guy who, if you don't know who John McAfee is, if you ever had a computer, which I'm assuming is anybody if you're listening to a podcast, in the early 2000s, McAfee, he was the guy who invented McAfee security protections, like would prevent, he was the guy who invented the virus that was the original and most popular antivirus software for the average home computer. He went on to make a bunch of fucking money, became a billionaire. As he got more money, became a little more eccentric, and then really took a tumble, his portfolio in the 2008 with that housing crisis. But he was also someone who was pretty smart and rich and eccentric. So he put a lot of money in crypto. He ended up remaining wealthy. He also never loved paying taxes. So he ended up becoming an outlaw in the United States and heading down to Latin American countries, because if you're in the club, if you're a billionaire or you're a super rich person who's in the boys club of billionaire super rich people in America, you evade taxes by legally having a home which you never go to in the Bahamas or the Cayman Islands or things like that. Real acceptable quid pro quo level of money laundering. If you're outside of that boys club but you're still a wealthy American, you have to go on the run in fucking Central America because you don't have any access to the Cayman Island bank. So you got to head down to Nicaragua and just, roll the dice. So John McAfee ended up going on the run for a while until he ended up in Belize. And if you owe the government money, if the government's after you, I don't want to say the government will do whatever, say whatever to paint you in a bad light. But while in Belize, John McAfee was accused of murdering his neighbor because his dog was loud or something completely, totally believable like that, all while the U.S. government was on his trail. So, and then obviously when you're accused of murder in a Central American or South American country, you got to fucking hit the road, Jack. So then he ends up on a boat and he just I'm pretty sure lives on the seven seas like a goddamn tax evading pirate for several years until he finally ends up in Spain, ends up arrested. And, the whole time he's not getting extradited back to the U.S. because the U.S. really, really fucking wants him. At this point, he's in a Spanish prison. And while he's in the Spanish prison, he's tweeting because he still has access, to his phone and the internet because, obviously, Spanish prison is awful then. He's tweeting that he's fine. He's never going to kill himself. Not that anyone thought that was going to happen. And, his wife, don't be worried. Everything's fine in the prison. It's all well and good. I'm going to get out of here. And then he just fucking one day hung himself and died. Out of nowhere. After he tweeted he wasn't going to do anything like that. Now, that's the super long summary of McAfee and his dealings, leaving out a lot of details like the fact he claimed to have 31 terabytes of incriminating information on the intelligence community and the government and several departments within it. Or the fact he claimed to know who murdered Jeffrey Epstein, the literal person who literally did it. He claims it was a former NYPD officer who was hired to do so, with a history of selling drugs. Perhaps that is the case. He also claims, well, he doesn't claim, but people claim that John McAfee was the guy who originally got the drone footage of Jeffrey Epstein's island in the Caribbean, Little St. James. Remember the Caribbean, the place that he wasn't allowed to illegally launder his money in because he wasn't in the boys' club? So there's a bunch of weird details in between him getting rich and him killing himself in a Spanish prison that really make it a little weirder and weirder and weirder. But what made it the weirdest, and something I just came across today, even though I've kind of been following this, but apparently not fucking enough, was the condo building that collapsed in Miami this past weekend, which was on the news for, a good solid 24 hours, an apartment building falling apart. And anyone who lost their life or anyone who lost their loved ones in that building, it's genuinely a tragedy, and it's awful, and it's not good. And whoever is responsible, whoever let a building collapse, whoever built a building that was structurally unsound, whatever the case may be, whatever the results of the investigation may prove, that person should be held responsible for someone losing someone they care about. Now, how the fuck ever? Apparently, there was a tweet that John McAfee sent out saying that when he explained that he had 31 terabytes of incriminating information on the government and the intelligence communities therein, he claimed that all of this was kept in his Miami condo, which apparently was the building that motherfucking collapsed. Yes. Now, if you were to go through the internet, you would see, if you type in McAfee Miami condo, most of the results will be conspiracy theorists go crazy and connect John McAfee tweets to the building that collapsed in Miami this past blah, 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 or whatever. So all you're really going to find are sources saying that this is a discredited theory. If you read through why it's a discredited theory, the answer is that there isn't a fucking answer. All of these articles just point out to, we found some guy's Instagram, and you can Photoshop things and deep fakes, and we're lying to you, and fuck you, and the same thing you don't believe us anymore is the same reason we're lying to you right now. Just shit like that. Because this is a matter of public record. John McAfee tweeted the address where his condo was. The building that collapsed in Miami has an address that you could go find documented places. So I ask you, the good people who are listening to me, what the fuck do you think? What the fuck do you think? I think when you kill yourself in a Spanish prison after tweeting that you have dirt on the government and you would never kill yourself, and you get a tattoo saying, I will never kill myself, you maybe didn't kill yourself. There is at least enough of a reason, at least enough of a 12 angry men form of doubt for me to think maybe this isn't what happened. Maybe the guy who was on the run from the government and other powerful people did not kill himself in the same exact form and methodology as Jeffrey Epstein did, in a prison cell, which apparently he had a roommate but wasn't there. That roommate, like, this is fucking college, no fucking cellmate, had a cellmate who wasn't there, and he did so with bed sheets, which are physically designed so you cannot do the act of choking yourself unconscious. Maybe John McAfee was just trying to jerk his little rich dick off with a string tied around his neck, because really wealthy, crazy, powerful people love to jerk off and choke themselves at the same time for some reason. All throughout history, that's apparently a real thing. Looking at you, Lutherans. Anyway, maybe that's what Jeffrey was into too, because he was into way too much, I think, to put it lightly. Maybe that's what happened to McAfee. He did put out a video of him doing a comical Scarface pile amount of cocaine with an AK-47 and strippers behind him in a jungle. However, this was in 2015, 16. This was right when Charlie Sheen was saying tiger blood and cool shit like that. So he was kind of riding a wave. I don't think we should really fault him for that as much. Now, I'm not saying McAfee's a hero either. He didn't pay taxes. Now, whether or not you agree with it, constitutionally maybe we don't have to pay taxes, but I invite you to take that stance, not pay them, and then defend yourself in court. The fact remains, he maybe murdered his neighbor in Belize. He was legally someone who committed a crime in America. He clearly lived a less than normal lifestyle, to put it lightly. That doesn't mean he didn't want to do something good either, because people are both. He could have been a crazy drug addict floating the high seas with most of his money stashed in hidden Bitcoin somewhere. That doesn't mean he wasn't a genius technologist who was someone privy to, private businesses having government contracts, who wouldn't have the ability to know Jeffrey Epstein or some of the people in his circle. Someone who literally invented fucking antivirus software, which made him famous. The guy who was like protecting your technology from backdoors and shit like that. There's a decent enough chance he would know how, or at the very least know how to go about gathering some incriminating information. People think Jeffrey Epstein's island was just one giant recorded blackmail fuck factory. And that's most likely based on everything we know about it. Who's to say, or at the very least, one of the people most qualified for the job to find out and gather some of that physical, recordings would be the guy who invented fucking antivirus software that made him famous, and a billionaire who also had a disrespect for the government and an inherent problem with authority. There's enough for me to link there to that maybe he was in some way, connected. And then factoring in that he had apparently stored anything that he potentially had in a condo that just collapsed in Miami. In Miami, a city whose entire economy is built on the shaky, uneven foundation of a cocaine empire. The entire city was built on drug import and exportation. And it's like a 40-year-old place. So if you're maybe running your organization out of a Miami condo and you're sailing the seven seas, a wanted criminal from the U.S. government, and you're claiming to know who killed Jeffrey Epstein, and you die in the same exact way that he died, there is a coincidence. Just perhaps. There's no way those two things are related. Man. You see there's a new chicken sandwich? Yep, that's right. The new McChick King from Burger King, brought to you by Paul Giamatti. The rhino from the second Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie. And I know a lot of people think I'm kidding when I say that there is in some way a connection to Epstein killing himself in the Popeyes chicken sandwich. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for that. And I know you should. You probably should, because when you start linking popular sandwiches to world events, what you have there is apparently the recipe for what the fuck is going on, people. Because if you've been watching TV fucking at all in the last month, any of the NBA playoff games, anything that anyone has talked about in the last month on television, at some point it went to a commercial break, and at some point it cut to Paul Giamatti talking to you about, I love a chicken sandwich. Now that wasn't even an attempt at a Paul Giamatti impression, because quite frankly, I don't think anyone could do a Paul Giamatti impression. But it's just fucking weird, man, that all of a sudden another crazy eccentric guy who at the very least claims to have a connection to Jeffrey Epstein ends up dead the same exact way as Jeffrey Epstein. And now we cut to a commercial break to talk to you about a different chicken sandwich by one of your most beloved character actors. And I swear to God, man, if like next month Ghislaine just gets whacked while she's, at her fucking New England home, we find her choked the fuck out on her porch, and then it cuts to like a commercial of Philip Seymour Hoffman telling you about Wendy's new chicken sandwich. Somehow they got Phil out of the grave to do that. Honestly, at this point, that seems to be like what's next. We're going to hear Ghislaine Maxwell choked herself with her own hands to death, and then there will be a new chicken sandwich from McDonald's with Philip Seymour Hoffman as the spokesperson. That is what's coming next. I see no other logical explanation. It's like who's ever killing people related to Epstein is just fucking with me. Like, all right, we got him. Drop another fucking chicken sandwich. We're going to kill, George Bush next, right? Drop another chicken sandwich. Here's another breadcrumb for your dumb fucking ass. Another chicken sandwich. That's gonna be my new phrase. Anytime like I hear news or someone sends me news that it's just kind of like one of those, fucking I know what that is. I'm just gonna be like, another chicken sandwich. Another chicken sandwich. Anytime anyone's trying to feed you some shit that you know to not be true, or at least be, fishy, you hit them with not another chicken sandwich. No more chicken sandwiches. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to fight chicken sandwiches. Fuck that fowl. Do you feel me? Swine ain't divine. Swine's a pig, but I was just trying to rhyme there for a minute because I've always wanted to be someone who could just rhyme mid-conversation because it just feels smooth. If I could just rhyme mid-conversation and be Italian, but not a trashy 2 Street Italian, but like a nice, gentleman Italian who could rap, I would be I would probably be Macklemore at that point. I think I just described Macklemore. I don't even know if he's Italian, but not a lot. Any white dude who rhymes well. Well, it's not even well, because we're talking about Macklemore. We should probably stop talking about Macklemore. No more chicken sandwiches. Get that chicken sandwich out of my face. Do you see what that was an example of, people? That was an example of me going on a bad tangent about Macklemore, which was generally bullshit. And then that's what I should have said, is no more chicken sandwiches. Next time you hear some of that shit, you tell them what's up. You let them know what time it is, because it's time. It's time. It's time for the aliens to say, guys, we're here. Because I'm sick of everyone waiting on the government to tell you. The government's not going to tell you. The average person spends 6 months looking through Twitter at least once a week, wondering, hey, when's the government going to release this alien doc? They finally do. And the fucking piece of paper just says, maybe, who knows? Perhaps there's a chance at that. So we haven't changed. We haven't learned anything new. All that's happening is that coronavirus is back and better than ever with a new name. It starts over in Asia, works its way to Europe, and I think it just hit California or Washington again here. There's a new chicken sandwich, which we've already discussed. There's a new rich, crazy billionaire killed himself, apparently. History repeats itself. No more chicken sandwiches.